good if you're coming into a live stream mid-sentence because it looks like you came in mid-sentence. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Broken Brain live feed for today, Thursday, September 30th, which, by the way, is International Podcast Day. Happy International Podcast Day. I forgot to put up my podcast tree, hide my podcast eggs, or any of the podcast day traditions. But I saw my friend Daryl Mansell, who I'll mention here in a second, posted Happy International Podcast Day over on the Paprika Network. And I thought, hey, I better hop on and say a couple words. I wanted to share a few things and give a little bit of a shout out to some podcasts that I listen to and that I believe in, some of whom I am affiliated with, to be honest, and some of whom I'm not, and some of whom I know the people, and some of whom I just am a listener. So I wanted to share a couple of those things with you on this very, very happy, merry International Podcast Day. I'm going to, for those of you who might be hearing the audio version of this later on, there's a video of this too. You can go over to the Broken Brain podcast YouTube channel if you want to see the video, or just the Broken Brain Facebook group if you want to watch it as well. But I'll be speaking as well as showing. But for the video, folks, there's a little extra thing we get to see, which is, well, you're going to get to see some of these things. I'm going to show you the podcast that I'm recommending. So let's start with this. The Psychology in Seattle podcast is one that I wanted to highlight as well. Dr. Kirk was a guest, recently played his interview, although we did the conversation a little bit ago, but was able to play that again and put that up recently. Wonderful podcast, wonderful guest, wonderful guy. Can we make that bigger? Yeah, there we go. Let's make me smaller and that bigger. That's good. And you can go to there, Seattle, and all of these you can find anywhere where you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, podcast apps, whatever. Psychology in Seattle, and he talks about everything, in some ways very similar to the topics we do on this show, where sometimes we be talking pop culture, sometimes be talking just deep dives into psychological research and things. One of the things cool about Dr. Kirk is that he is a psychologist and a professor, lecturer as well. Very, very in-depth knowledge. If you heard my discussion with him on attachment theory, you're like, whoa, why am I even listening to Dwight? Well, I hope you didn't say that. But hey, looks like Jerry's over on LinkedIn has linked as well. Hey, he's got a podcast too, the Counseling Convo podcast. I'm going to show that to you guys on the comments. So thanks, Jerry's. Did I say it right, Jerry's? I don't know you, but I'm going to have to give you a listen as well. The Counseling Convos podcast. So happy to have you listening and also contributing. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. Let's hop over to another one that I'll do. It should let me do this more seamlessly here on StreamYard, but StreamYard, here's a word for StreamYard. Have you ever heard of Rise Today, risetoday.com? Dr. Erica Harris, there we go, is the founder of that movement. She is a coach and an expert. Jarius, I said it right. Thank you, Jerry. I just got your comment. Dr. Erica Harris does the Rise Today Inspirational podcast, and it's one that I do produce. So whenever you hear or see an episode of that, I am in the background recording and making notes, copious notes. Actually, I don't have to be that copious because I don't even have to edit that much around these guys. They're great, great guests as well as a great host. The theme of the Rise Today podcast is basically surviving life's trials and transcending that. And so every guest that comes on has their own story and their own background to share, which is one of the things that is very, very cool. Very, very cool about that. One of the shows that you've heard me talk about quite a bit, let's see, is also the Let's Chat podcast. Let's Chat with Chris Revel. And Chris is both a frequent guest on this program, but he also, with the Let's Chat with Chris Revel podcast, does wonderful interviews. Chris and I also host a Patreon-only show that's in the Patreon for the Broken Brain and for the Let's Chat podcast. If you're a subscriber to either one, we do the Broken Chat once a month as well, once or twice a month, where we talk about just pop culture and different things too. Chris is a wonderful guy, and he also has, if you like comedy, if you like entertainment or music, if you like punk music in particular, then one of the things that is really great about his show is he gets wonderful guests from all of those areas of pop culture. So you should be checking him out as well. Here is, where is it? Wiseman, the Wiseman Method Rapid Detox Clinic is a place where you can learn more about detoxification. They do rapid medical detoxification to help people with opioid addiction. And they have a wonderful podcast that it's another one that I am involved with. I do produce and co-host with that. If you look up Wiseman Method Podcast or a podcast to answer your questions about dependency and addiction, you can go to www.opiates.com to learn more about their movement as well. Claire Wiseman and David Livingston are the co-hosts, the other hosts on there as well. And basically, I come on and pose some questions to them about addiction and things, and we talk about that. And speaking as someone who's worked in that field for a long time, they are hella knowledgeable, y'all. They are very, very knowledgeable and also have a great take on individualized treatment and meeting people's needs that way. Those of you, I don't know if I talk about this enough. I probably don't talk about it enough, but the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network is the network that the Broken Brain is a part of. And it's a wonderful network. Those of you that are fans of this show probably know Carly Beaumont. She's been a frequent guest on my podcast, but she started this network as someone who worked in the nonprofit sector and is just basically a wonderful person. She has a lot of knowledge about lots of different things and has brought basically, one of the things that I really like about it is it's a very diverse network as far as what types of people and hosts you have, as well as what types of topics. So there's a lot of things about pop culture, TV, different things like that. And you can see all these, there's shows like Get Real Movies, there's Food Baby, Failure to Launch, Talking Shondaland, Music Ate My Brain, and TV Ate My Brain, where actually the hosts of the network will take turns talking about their favorite movies and TV shows. Talking Shondaland about the works of Shonda Rhimes that Carly hosts, as well as just a lot of different shows that you're going to see on there. So History of Color as well. They haven't had a new one in a while. They're kind of on a hiatus, but Andrea Alvarez hosted on there, and just wonderful history of people of color in history class, things that you didn't probably hear there. So some wonderful things. Go to coretemparts.com to learn a little bit more about that. Couple of shows that I'm not at all affiliated with myself, that I just don't even, some of those I'm not, but I know the hosts. But they're started listening to recently. Lakeshore and Limbo is a podcast that you might want to be aware of. It's a role-play gaming podcast, and those have really taken off recently. But I will tell you that not all of them translate to audio. And I'm not taking any shots at anybody. What I am saying is that I think it's a very hard format to get right. The Adventure Zone with the McElroy brothers was one of the first ones, at least, that burst into a lot of cultural zeitgeist. If you've had one for a long, long time, I apologize. Not saying you don't exist. And if you have one, please let me know. I'd love to hear more. But I've heard some that have very talented people in them, but yet they struggle to find that balance between listenable and fun and appropriate or realistic gameplay as well. And that's just a very hard balance to strike. With these guys here, Lakeshore and Limbo, man, they just nail it, especially being people that I've not run into on the Podosphere before. They're all very, very talented writers and actors. It's a 4-person cast. You've got a game manager, and it's like a magical fantasy game noir kind of thing. You've got 3 wonderful actors who are portraying that. And because everything is done in a role-playing game kind of format, you don't know what's going to happen. So if they are telling the story as they go, they're rolling dice able to approve what they're able to do or not able to do. So it makes her pretty cool. That, and the Film Reroll podcast is another one that does that. They do it with movies is their thing, and they retell movies, but it changes. So a couple of those out there are really good, but Lakeshore and Limbo is one I literally just found last week. Very, very good. If we were to move over to the other as I'm trying to find the tab, there it is. Old Gods of Appalachia, I wanted to mention that too, is a horror anthology podcast that you can listen to. That takes place in, mostly it's throwback stories they go as far back as the 1800s. Some of them take place in the 1960s, and it is a fictional anthology podcast about sort of a shared universe in the Appalachian Hills and some of that part of the country, where they have all sorts of like ghost stories, some horror stories, and things like that are super cool. And I think you would really like it if you like that kind of thing. If you don't like that kind of thing, maybe you like something else. I don't know your life, people, but I love that podcast. I think it's very well done. Also, if you are a podcaster, it's a great example of how to run a podcast. It is about, fiction and horror fiction, but if you're interested in the way to run and market and put together a podcast, they actually are a great example of that. And you have fun listening to it as well. So Paprika, I mention that all the time. I do know Daryl. I've been on infrequently. I've been able, I need to bust into that network a little bit more, but I've been able to be on a couple episodes here and there over the years. And Daryl's been over on my show a little bit as well. But I feel like vast majority of my experience with Paprika is listening to it and participating on the Facebook group, literally waiting for pulling up websites and things before this. I was on a thread where we were talking about the What If series. And one of the really cool things about Paprika, and it goes under the name Paprika Reviews now, and you can find all of their shows that they do talking about different things, talking the Cinnamon, discussing movies, rephrased scenes, and then you get Daryl Mansell's review of movies as well. Your man, The Seed, there, giving you the lowdown on movies. One of the things that's wonderful about Paprika on Facebook, and you should all go join it if you like pop culture and movies at all, is that it's a very, very toxic-free zone for fandom, if you will. It's a great place if you like to have some commentary and some exchange with people who, let me put it this way, if somebody gets on there and if they're nasty and mean, they basically don't last very long in that group, which is something I love about it. So there are just a million different things that I could say. I mean, there's lots of different podcasts and things that are out there that I've become aware of recently and over the years doing this. I just want to say one little thing about podcasting, which podcasting has allowed me to reach out and to touch, I don't know, all of y'all, and you get to decide if that's a good thing. But if you're listening to this and watching this, you probably feel like it is somewhat of a good thing. And that's very humbling to me. I'm grateful to be able to be a part of your life and a part of your listening as well. When we're doing that. And I'm one of the things that's really cool about it is both guests and other podcasters and listeners to the show been able to meet some of the coolest people that I've ever met in my life. So I'm going to put one shameless plug at the end here. If you are interested in learning more about participating, I got some cool rewards. I'm not going to go into those now. You can go to patreon.com/brokenbrain if you want to find out what those are. There's a couple of different monthly levels that you can do, some different rewards that I think are pretty good. We have 4 levels now that you can get on, and I think they're worth it. So you can check that if you want to. But basically, happy podcasting day. Hope that everybody has a wonderful day, even if you don't observe the holiday yourself or you weren't aware that it was. I hope you're still having a wonderful day. Later on today, I get to record with Sharon Blady, and that's going to go up pretty soon as well. We're going to be talking about Shang-Chi and some of the elements of grief and pain and families that go into that. I think that the interview with Dr. Kirk is recent, as well as Sam Les interview went up just a little bit ago, who's an inspirational coach, transformational coach, who actually, incidentally, you'll see he popped up today in an inspirational podcast as well, which will be up next week too. So he's going around with some interviews. So some more things like that will be coming up soon. We'll have an update. But until then, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful day.